$80 million scandal that has the art world up in arms tonight and collectors checking their most prized possessions. ABC's chief investigative correspondent Brian Ross tracks down the man at the center of it all for our series Nightline Investigates.
On the streets of New York, the business of fakes and knockoffs is thriving. Fake $200 Ray-Ban sunglasses for $30.
This Roman can cost even $205 include tax.
Fake $2,000 Louis Vuitton handbags for $75. Fake $10,000 Rolex watches for $80.
If you found something good, this is good. Nobody can tell the difference with the rumor.
Most of the customers know they're getting fakes, and it's rare for anyone to be arrested. But our story tonight is about a series of fakes that sold for tens of millions of dollars to people who didn't know they were buying fakes. All created by an elderly Chinese immigrant and part-time construction worker who once could be found here in Times Square doing drawings of tourists for about $10 each. But as we found in our ABC News investigation, the artist is now a long way away from Times Square. And our efforts to unravel the mystery of this massive scheme took us from New York's elite art world to billionaire collectors in London to accused fake art dealers in Spain and all the way to China, the hiding place for the little-known artist who has turned the art world upside down with his masterful fakes. In this case, the accused forger created lookalikes of some of America's most prominent artists, including the late Mark Rothko, whose iconic blocks of color sell for millions of dollars. This real Rothko sold for $56 million in May. A perfect time to turn out the fakes. Here are images of a real Rothko and a fake Rothko created by the accused Times Square forger. The real one on the right sold for $3 million. The fake on the left actually sold for more, $8 million.
I thought that looks like a pretty good Rothko, and I'm not alone. I'd love to see the original forgeries.
Art critic Blake Gottnick says a lot of so-called art experts were taken in by the fakes.
The greatest collectors of Rothkos, the greatest connoisseurs of Rothkos, loved them when they first saw them until they found out they were forgeries.
The Times Square copycat also targeted the works of Jackson Pollock, whose technique of drips and splashes of paint captivated the art world.
Figuring out that art could be made that way is what matters, but of course it opens them up to forgers big time, because forgers can splash paint too.
Here are images of a real Jackson Pollock and one created by the accused Times Square forger. The real one on the right sold for $58 million last year. The fake on the left sold years ago for $2 million. According to court records, the fake art created by the Chinese artist sold for a total of more than $80 million over the last decade. The fakes were first spotted by a billionaire collector in London, Pierre Lagrange, who was having his art appraised as he went through a divorce. An expert determined that the type of yellow paint in this fake Jackson Pollock, purchased for $17 million, was produced years after Jackson Pollock had died.
If a picture's made with paint that didn't exist when the artist was alive, that's a pretty good sign that it's probably a fake.
Lagrange bought his fake Jackson Pollock through the once prestigious Knoedler Gallery in New York City, who he sued, saying in his lawsuit the gallery knew or should have known it was selling a fake. He later settled with Knoedler. The gallery denies knowing it was a fake, saying it was fooled too. Knoedler went out of business after 165 years, a day after the expert hired by Lagrange reported the painting was a fake.
Real consequences and reputations, of course, have been ruined all along. That's why there's so much finger-pointing back and forth. Everyone's trying to put the blame on someone else so that they don't look as foolish.
And at the center of the scam, authorities say, is this New York woman, Glafira Rosales, a self-described art dealer who, along with her boyfriend, first approached the Chinese artist and got him to begin turning out the fakes. She has pleaded guilty to federal fraud and tax charges and is now cooperating with the government. Her boyfriend, named Jose Bergantinos Diaz, was arrested in Spain on the U.S. charges and freed while he awaits extradition to the United States. He has denied any wrongdoing and told local reporters he's not worried about the case. As for the artist, he disappeared from his home in Queens, New York, when news reports first surfaced about the massive forgery scheme. So we tracked him back to China, to a neighborhood on the outskirts of Shanghai, and his small studio in this high-rise apartment. His name is Pei-Shing Kim, and he talked for the first time on television about the fakes and the investigation with Meg Chuchmak of ABC News.
My intent wasn't for my fake paintings to be sold as the real thing. They were just copies to be put up in your home if you like it.
Kin was paid between $5,000 and $8,000, according to the indictment against him, for paintings which later sold for millions of dollars.
If you look at my bank account, you'll see there was no income. I'm still a poor artist. Do you think I could be involved with this?
Kin has admitted he forged the signatures of the painters he copied. Yet he insisted to ABC News he was stunned that so many people in the art world would be fooled by his fake Rothkos and Pollocks.
These copies were just supposed to mimic them on a basic level, so I was very shocked that people mixed them up.
But mix them up they did. Outside a recent Sotheby's auction of abstract art, we set up an easel with images of a fake Rothko and a real one to see if those attending the auction could spot the forgery.
Well, definitely this one.
I say the one on the left is the fake, the one on the right is real. No.
I'm saying the one on the right is the fake, the one on the left is real.
I know Rothko pretty well. It's not easy.
The real is on the right and the fake is on the left? I don't know.
People thought they were sublime masterworks. Before they knew they were fakes, people thought these are great works of art, and they put them up in fancy museums.
Does it matter?
I think it only matters because it teaches us something really important, which is that we don't actually look at works of art for their beauty, for what they teach us visually. We look at them as autographs. We look at them as price tags.
As for Kin, he's beyond the reach of the FBI and American law while staying in China, where he says he continues to paint now. It's his passion, but no longer producing any of those fakes. For Nightline, this is Brian Ross, ABC News, New York.